Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today we are going to be going through the heart rate sensor. So before you watch this video, I would strongly suggest going and looking at the written tutorial. There you're going to find a schematic, which is the one that we'll be using, and you'll also find some more in-depth information on what we're doing and how everything works. So something to keep in mind before we get too far into this is that this setup here is only for reference. It's not made for medical use. It's simply a proof of concept, or however you want to word it. So let's look at the circuit quick on how we're setting this all up. So it's pretty simple. We're using an infrared emitter and an infrared detector, and then you put your finger between the two and it should detect the amount of blood and vary the signal from there. So not too bad. So the rest of the video here, we are going to walk through the software, just a very brief overview of what's going on there, and then we will see the heart rate sensor actually work. So looking at the software here, to start we just include all the libraries that we're going to be using. We define a bunch of variables that we'll use later, and the first notable part where the program starts is right here. We define what our high filter frequency is and what our low frequency filter is. So the high filter frequency is going to let through anything above 0.75 hertz, and the low filter frequency is going to let anything below 2.5 hertz through. In the setup loop, we're just defining our USB communication and our Bluetooth communication. The USB communication, that is, we're going to be using the serial monitor to see the pleth graph, and then the serial 1.begin, that's our Bluetooth. So you'll need either an Android phone or any way that you can see the serial monitor through Bluetooth. Moving on here, we are going to be using timer 3, and timer 3 is going to be running at 500 hertz, and this is simply going to be used to keep track of the time between the heartbeats. So continuing down, in the main loop, we are going to be reading the analog pin. So when you hook this up, make sure you hook it up to analog 0, because that's the pin that we're reading from. We're taking that signal, we're multiplying it by 100, and then these 4 lines right here, the first 2 are to help calculate the 4-second average, so that's used to help calculate the heart rate that it's sensing, and then the 0.1 second average, that's just to help smooth out the graph quite a bit. The lines below that, all of this is just to calculate the heart rate, so it's detecting the high spike and the low spike and then doing some calculations, and then in the end it prints it to serial 1, and serial 1, remember, is the Bluetooth. And then last but not least, we print the filtered signal to the serial, not the serial monitor, but instead the serial plotter. So that was a brief overview of the code. Now let's take a look at the circuit in action. So I'll upload the code and I will be right back. Alright, so the code just finished uploading. As you can see in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, this is exactly what I'm seeing. So I have the light emitter on one side of my finger and the light detector on the other side. It's best to put some pressure on the light emitter. That will help get a cleaner signal and a more consistent heart rate. So if we look at the rest of this, we have the signal out connected to A0 on the Arduino shield, just as we should, and then I have my Android phone hooked up to the 115K baud rate so we can see the live heart rate. So if we open up the serial plotter, we should see the signal of my heartbeat. So that looks pretty good. The orange line here is the average that we're calculating, and this is how it's detecting the heart rate. So it's looking for the high spike and the low spike, and this orange line is how it differentiates the two. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to see, but it is a little blurry. But the Bluetooth is working. It's reading off live values of what the heart rate is, and it appears to be accurate. So the light emitter, it's a little bit hard to see, but the light emitter is between my thumb and my pinky. It takes a little bit of time to figure out how much pressure to be putting on the emitter, but it should be a constant pressure. And also note that it shouldn't be on your nail, because that will cause some weird reflections and will cause a not very good signal. And then one final note is that we are, for the serial plotter, we're on a 57600 baud rate, so double check to make sure that that is the same on yours. So that was how to use the heart rate circuit. Hopefully this was of some help. I know I kind of sped through the code here, but the important part is actually getting it working and functioning properly. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.